All right, again, welcome back. And now this session is about query tuning, SQL Server query tuning. I am taking a few topics from query tuning world. Now, SQL Server query tuning is huge. It's an ocean, and it's of course not possible to cover everything, let alone a 1 hour session. I mean, you spend days and months and years, and there's still so much to learn in SQL Server query tuning. My name is Amit Bansal. I have been working with SQL Server for a couple of years now. I started in 1997 as a developer. I was actually a Visual Basic developer, and then I moved on and learned something about SQL Server. And that time I just knew how to write select queries. But then there was a need where someone from our team had to know a little more internals for performance tuning. So I took up the challenge. I started learning more about SQL Server, and it fascinated me so much, the relational engine and how things work inside SQL Server. I dedicated whole my life on SQL Server, really, so to say. So since last 2 decades, I have been working with SQL Server, various versions. I've been focusing a lot on internals, troubleshooting, and performance tuning. Over the years, I have gained MVP credentials, Microsoft Certified Master of SQL Server, spoken at almost all conferences wherever there is some presence of SQL Server. And my day job is with SQL Maestros, and I also do community stuff, something like this with Data Platform Geeks and SQL Server Geeks. That's quickly about me. If you want to learn more about my courses and certain things that we have developed, go to sqlmaestros.com. There are some video courses and a lot of free training as well. I am on Twitter, _Bansal, if you wish to connect with me there. There's an exclusive distribution list that I maintain for all attendees and participants who join sessions like these, or conferences or pre-con sessions, or even masterclasses. That's bit.ly/connectwithab. And if you just want to give some feedback on LinkedIn, I've put a universal URL there, bit.ly/give feedback for AB. And if you want to watch more demos apart from this session, log on to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SQL Maestros. More than 100 videos out there. All the links are there in the chat window. Maybe you can just copy, paste, and save it for yourself. Now, let's begin today's session. I hope all of you can see the screen and Management Studio and everything. Satya, can you confirm if everything is all good? And I'll open up the files.
Yes, Amit, fine.
Okay, I guess my sound was muted, so I probably couldn't hear. Yes, Satya, now I can hear you. All good?
Yes, good.
Perfect. Okay, so I am going to show you top 5 query tuning tricks, and you can see I've just kind of taken one of the whole modules from one of our video courses, and I'm trying to cover 5 of them. We have like 15 to 20 in the video course, but this is what 1 hour will permit. And first I'm going to begin with some basic ones, and then we will move more into some advanced concepts. So first up, I'm going to talk about sargability. What do you mean by sargability? It's a made up term, not really an English official term. It means search argument ability, the ability of the database engine to search within your data based on the search argument that you have provided. Now, this is a very common thing that I see in SQL Server deployments when developers are writing their queries. They do not really have this concept of sargability and how internally indexes can be used to give better performance to their queries. So now let's first take an example, and then I'm going to take a step back and give you some background so all of us are on the same page. I'm using AdventureWorks database here, and there's a table called person.contact. It's a very simple query in front of you. Select email address from person.contact, where email address is like Aaron %. Now, the things that you need to focus here is I'm only getting email address column in my select list. My predicate is also email address, and which means I'm filtering on email address column, and the criteria says Aaron %. Note that where is this wild character %? That is after the text Aaron. I will turn on actual execution plan, and I'm going to execute this. So let's do that. We execute this, and let's go to the execution plan. And what you are going to do is, if you zoom in, you will see that SQL Server Optimizer plans to seek on the index. So there is a seeking activity happening on the index. And if you take the cursor over seek here and just look at the object that is being used. So it seems that in AdventureWorks person.contact, focus on this portion, there is a object ix contact email address, which means this is the index on which SQL Server is seeking. Now, let's change the query a bit. Instead of Aaron percent, I write percent Aaron, okay, and percent. So even if I include this or I do not include, really doesn't matter. But what I've done is now in my search criteria, I have prefixed my search criteria with the wildcard character there, percentage. So let's go and execute this now and go into the execution plan. And now you can see that SQL Server is scanning instead of seeking. This is something that you may want to see. Scan. And which object is being scanned? Of course, the same object. I'm not zooming in, but you can see in the object IEX contact email address. Now let's take a step back. What's going on? This is one of the most basic ones, right? I'm just setting the foundation for all of us here. Why do you create indexes? Indexes automatically do not improve performance, right? They help you get to the data faster. Indexes are typically searching mechanism. You know, think about a book, right? Where you have an index in the front, which is like the table of content. And then remember, some like big thick books have indexes at the back where you have some keywords and the page number. So you pick up the keyword and just jump to the page number, try to locate that keyword in those pages. That's exactly what's happening here. Indexes are searching mechanism. By creating an index on email address, what SQL Server has done is the base data, be it a heap, which is no index, or a clustered index, it has taken only email address from here. Technically, it also takes clustered index key value, but that's not important right now. It takes the email address and puts it separately, and it also has a pointer to the base table. Now, when you say, give me data from this particular table and give me email address or maybe some other columns also, but the most important thing is you're filtering on email address. Now, this query goes to the optimizer. Optimizer sees that there is an index on email address. So it goes to the email address non-clustered index and it picks up this criteria Aaron, and then it does a seek. Seeking here means that when you have this index that gets created, whether it is clustered index or non-clustered index, it is a B-tree structure, which is you have the root page, some intermediate levels, and then the leaf level. So you're jumping from root to intermediate to leaf level. That's what is happening, and that's what you want to happen, because that is the quick searching mechanism. Scanning would mean that you're scanning the entire leaf level. So you're not really traversing from root to intermediate to leaf, but you're just touching every page. Seeking is what you want, at least in this scenario, because you had said Aaron. So let's go to root, then intermediate, go to leaf level, get the Aaron from there. And if there are additional columns that you want, apart from email address, go and do a lookup on the base table and fetch additional columns. What are those additional columns? Those additional columns are columns that you have put in the select list, which are not part of the non-clustered index. In this particular case, I am not really getting any other column. I'm only getting email address. So I don't need to go to the base table. I can just fetch email address from the non-clustered index itself. This is what you want. And this is what really happened when you ran the first query. But then what went wrong when you ran the second query? Instead of seeking, it is scanning. The answer here is, this is where this concept of sargability comes in. Your second query, where you put the wildcard character before the string, prefixing it, makes this query non-sargable, which means the search argument here, Aaron, is not being used by the index for seeking. Why? Because indexes follow a left-based subset search mechanism, right? You start searching from left to right. And right in the left, the first character is a wild character. So how will SQL Server or Optimizer know where to begin the search from? Because it is a percentage, means anything. So there is no seeking. There is no traversing from root to intermediate to leaf, which means SQL Server has to scan the entire leaf level, right? Every page has to be touched to find out this string Aaron in every page. That makes the query quite expensive, the searching quite expensive. Think about your thick book with like 2000 pages and you have this non-clustered index at the back. If I give you a keyword, okay, take this keyword and find it, and then you're searching through every page in the book, and scanning through 2000 pages is going to take quite a bit of time if you're not seeking. That's exactly the same thing that is happening here. And this query is non-sargable. Remember, you are not supposed to put any wildcard character before the search string. That makes it non-sargable. And how expensive this is. If I take both of them and execute it and go to the execution plan, you can see that, look at what Optimizer thinks. Optimizer thinks that this query is 2%, the first one, which is actual seeking, versus the next one, which is 98%, which is scanning. That's the kind of expense ratio that the optimizer thinks. So, which means the second one is quite expensive. Now, this is only optimizer's estimate. I will not always go by optimizer's estimate, even though optimizer is really great and good 99.99% of the time. So I always want to corroborate this with actual runtime statistics. Remember, whatever you see in the execution plan with these percentages, right? Those are all estimations by the optimizer. And now I want to see the actual execution statistics. So what I can do is I can just select the select operator and press F4 or go to the properties window. And you can see there is something called as query time stats here. For the select operator here, or for the query where we seeked index seek, you can look at CPU time and elapsed time is all 0. Well, there is nothing called 0 here, but it means that it was negligible. Going and seeking and just fetching email address with Aaron, anything that was very, very quick. So quick that SQL even doesn't bother putting down a number like 1 there, okay? But what happens with scanning? So if I take this cursor and put select, press F4, and go and expand this query stats here, look what you see here. CPU time and elapsed time has some milliseconds there, which is like 82 milliseconds. Can I say that this was 82 times more expensive? Well, not, because these are actual runtime statistics, but you can see that there is good amount of cost associated. Now, I'm only looking at the time statistics. There is also an IO statistics here involved, and I can show that to you if I turn on, as you all know, that statement, set statistics IO on, right? That's the one. So if I turn this on, and I should also turn on time on, but now because properties window shows that to you, I can just quickly use that and run both of them. And it runs, and let's go to the messages there. And you can see seeking is only logical reads 3, and really 3. The root page, 1 page in the intermediate, and 1 page in the leaf level, 1, 2, 3. Great. But scanning is reading 176 pages. That is really where the problem is, seeking versus scanning. So make sure that your queries are sargable in nature. Now, this is a common problem that I see with developers and DBAs, and DBAs definitely do understand a little more here, because developers have very strong foundation and, let's say, knowledge and experience with programming and coding. But sometimes how things happen inside SQL Server, they're kind of unaware. And this is where developers, when they're writing such queries, it is important that they use these wildcards and these techniques a little more carefully, knowing that how, if I'm writing this query, how is it going to be processed and executed inside SQL Server. Now, going by this best practice here, look at this example now, where email address from person.contact like a person, this is the same one. And if I execute this, okay, and go into the execution plan, you can see again I'm seeking, well, good, no issues. But if let me just pull this a little down. And then if I take this one, what am I trying to do with this one? I am trying to write an equivalent statement of the previous one using a left function, right? A lot of brain work there. I'm trying to search in email address column where I'm saying that the first character from the left will be equal to 1. So this is going to behave like the previous query. And when I execute this, and let's go into the execution plan, you can again see that it is a scan. So like same problem, but just 2 different flavors. Well, non-sargability can have many different flavors like these. Now you may ask, hey Amit, what's the problem with this one? Well, the problem is, for the optimizer to seek on the index, you need an index key value there. But when your index key value, which is contained inside email address, and you try to do some mathematics with that on the left-hand side of the operator, then it becomes an expression. So SQL Server is just comparing one expression with another expression, and the index loses its sargability, in simple terms, searchability. Okay, and then it goes and scans. So the best practice here is that keep the left hand side of your equality operator as clean as possible. This is the best practice developers, DBAs, and SQL practitioners should follow. A lot of questions coming in the Q&A panel. Yeah, keep coming, let them come in, and I'm going to answer them at the end of the session. Right. So I hope I was able to communicate this sargability thing with just two simple examples. Let's move on and let's look at another flavor of this now. So I'm going to use AdventureWorks 2012 here, and let's take one more example. So I have select from person.person. This is the table again, person.person, and it has a column called first name. So when I select this query, and let's go and execute, and let's see what happens. And when you go into the execution plan, you can see that a scan is happening. Now, again, let's say I've learned this concept of sargability, and now my mind is always working towards seek, seek, seek all the time. Now think about this. Just because I showed you sargability and I showed you an example where the index should be seeking and should not be scanning, it doesn't really mean that you always harp and you force SQL Server to seek all the time. Now remember, the optimizer is cost based. You do the right things and optimizer will also do the right things 99.99999% times, but there could always be that 0.0001% time where optimizer can just get a little confused and can go a little wrong. That can always happen, and SQL Server team keeps working round the clock to fix those things. Anyway, that's a separate discussion. The point that I'm trying to make here is that when you have done the right thing, still optimizer is cost based, and then optimizer will decide, should I seek or should I scan? That is a cost-based decision the optimizer is going to take. I'll take a small example. Let's say your table has 1,000,000 rows. And when you say select from that table with 1,000,000 rows where a particular column is equal to some value, and if that is supposed to return just one row and you already have an index on that column, the optimizer might seek on that particular column. Why? Selectivity is very, very high, right? High selectivity means low number of records. Low selectivity means high number of records. So if your query and predicate, the search criteria is highly selective, the optimizer may try to seek, because then going to an index, getting just that one column and then doing a bookmark lookup on the base table and fetching that additional column. So this is called as bookmark lookup, when you go and seek on a table which has a clustered index to fetch those additional columns. This is called as a bookmark lookup operation. Because you just wanted one row out of 1,000,000 rows, bookmark lookup was good and seeking was the right thing to do. But let's say out of those 1,000,000 rows, you want 500,000 rows, half of the table, then do you think it makes cost sense to go and seek one record, do a bookmark lookup, and do this operation 500,000 times? That's going to be very, very expensive. SQL Server will think, no, this is not the right thing to do. To do a lookup 500,000 times with all this seeking, let me just go to the base table and do a scan and get all the data out. That's going to be faster. So this is seeking versus scanning. So when you see scanning, don't always be very stubborn about the fact that, no, I want seek. You just make sure that your queries are written correctly. There is the right index there. And if still SQL Server is scanning, probably your queries were low selective and it was returning high number of records. Now the question here is, when I run this query again, so let me just run this again and look into the results. I get about, let me move this. I get about 154 rows. Now, I'm not really going to play with the number of rows here, but what I will just try to do is go into the execution plan, and I will think that, okay, Amit in one of his session told that if there is an index, we should try to seek on that, but this query is scanning. What's going on? Let's take the cursor over this and zoom in. And then let's go and look at the object. What does the object say? It says, by looking at the naming convention of the index, so I really appreciate the developer of this database, or the DBA who has designed. So it says index on object person, and looks like there are 3 columns in this index. So the index key is a formation of 3 columns, which is last name, first name, and middle name. Now the question is, I have the right index. I haven't used any wildcard character here. Oh, I have used, okay, percentage, but that is after Rob. It is not like this, what I showed you. Well, this was a problem, but this is not a problem. And then you will be, Amit, everything looks good. There is an index on person, and the index key also has first name in it. And I'm not using wildcard character in the beginning. It is at the end. It should be seeking. Why is it scanning? Now, this is the second learning about searchability and sargability, which is, remember, one of the things that I said, and you might have forgotten about that already because there's a lot of content coming in now, which is searching always begins from left, right? So we call it as left-based subset searching mechanism, which means searching should start from last name and then first name and then middle name. Now, because first name is not the first key in your index key formation, SQL Server cannot seek on first name. If you put last name as the predicate there, then it will seek on this index. But if you don't do that, then it is going to scan. Well, that is the rule of the optimizer. If you're not seeking on the first column or the first key there, you cannot seek on subsequent columns. So if I'm not seeking on last name, I cannot seek on first name. I cannot seek on middle name. If I just have first name and middle name in my search criteria, I can only scan. So keep that in mind. Now, this is the rule of the optimizer and the Management Studio here, and there are certain DMVs that are running behind the scene. They do a good job here by hinting you something. So Management Studio hints you, and there is something called as a missing index hint here. So if I right click and go to missing index details, it tells me that you are trying to search on first name. Unfortunately, there is an index on first name, but first name is not the first column in that index. In fact, the first column is last name. So if you really want good search performance and if you want seeking capability, why not go ahead and create an index on first name? Now, you might be very tempted to do that because you want seeking and then you want that 99% impact. Now, here is a caution. Here is a warning. Don't follow these recommendations blindly. Okay, you need to apply your brain. You need to review what indexes you already have. For example, someone created this index on last name, first name, and middle name, right? And there might be some querying patterns that need that index. Well, there could be a case where that index was created some time back, and right now those reports are not running. They are probably deprecated, and that index is just lying there and it's not being used. So some DMVs are available, which I'm not showing you right now because then it becomes an indexing session. It has to be query tuning session. So I'll skip that part. But the point that I'm trying to make, instead of creating a new index, why don't you go and modify the existing index and just change the column order? Or maybe just drop that index if that index is not being used. So this is another concept of getting rid of unused indexes, duplicate indexes, redundant indexes, etc., etc. And as I said, this is not more about indexes. So the point is, yes, the warning here is don't follow this blindly. Go and look into existing indexes and see if they can be reutilized in some ways. But for the sake of the demo and for the sake of completeness, let's assume that that index is also being used, and this particular report, this particular query is very critical, and I need to improve the performance. So I'm showing you a level 100 stuff here. Just go to query and specify template parameters here, and I'm going to follow the best practice, which is ix_person_first name. That's what we do here, and we create the index. Let's do that. And there is an index. So just to show you this, which database was this? AdventureWorks 2012. And I'm going to refresh the tables here and scroll down on person.person and expand indexes. And let me zoom in. And now you can see that two indexes exist. This was the one that was already there, last name, first name, middle name, right? And this is the one on top of that is the one that you have just created now, right? Now, this is the point that I'm trying to make. I would probably review this twice, whether I really need two indexes which have similarity in columns like these. Can I just change the order of columns, and can one index satisfy multiple queries? You never want a scenario where you have created one index per query. Think about that. You might have 500 different patterns of querying with the database. Does this mean that you land up creating 500 different types of indexes? Absolutely not. Each non-clustered index, remember, takes extra storage space, needs maintenance, and impacts your DML operations, inserts, updates, and deletes. So you may never want to do that. Okay, so once this is done, let's go back to this one again, and let's do a search on this. So let's go and execute this. And now you go into the execution plan, and are you seeking? Yes, we are seeking. And now the optimizer does the right thing, because you did the right thing, which is you created an index on first name or you modified an existing index and put first name as the first column, and that object is being used. So you have converted scan into seek, and you have already seen the performance in previous examples. When scan is converted into seek, it has great impact on overall performance. Well, this one was a simple technique of what I was trying to show you earlier. Now let's go and run this and execute and see what happens, which is just an extension of what I was trying to talk about earlier. Now, even though you have the right index on first name, you're again scanning. Can you tell me why? Yes, absolutely. You're thinking it right. Keep the left-hand side of the operator as clean as possible. So you try to do a lot of mathematics on the column, it becomes an expression. It cannot be used for searching now. All right, friends. So this was about sargability. Let me close this, and I hope this demo was useful. That is the first trick there about sargability, and that itself went quite along. Okay, let's move on to the next one now. Okay, let's open the second one, query tuning, bookmark lookups now. Okay, so I'm going to use AdventureWorks 2016. So the first example was about sargability and searchability. The next example is about bookmark lookups. I briefly touched bookmark lookup right in the first example. Now let's look at a real-time scenario there. So let me turn on statistics, time, and IO on. And let's skip some very basics and just come to a real world example. I'm using Atom Mechanics big database, AdventureWorks. We have blown up a few tables, and then I'm using some queries here. So what is this query doing? Let's turn on actual execution plan. I will not dive deep into what the query is doing. It's simply creating some data into a temporary table called hash X. So I am selecting from this DBO big product, and then I'm cross-applying with this particular inner expression. So cross-apply would mean that this inner expression will be applied to every row from the outer query. Let's execute this and see how much time it takes. And we will also turn actual execution plan. Let's go and execute this. And this runs with some errors, DBO invalid object. Okay, wonderful. Which means this database should not be AdventureWorks. This should be AdventureWorks 2016. Let's change. Well, these errors are easy to fix. Okay, let's scroll down. And I am going to run this once more in AdventureWorks 2016. So those big tables are actually in AdventureWorks 2016. All right, this is running now, and I've turned on actual execution plan. And let's see how much time is this taking. Okay. This goes a lot bigger than I had thought. Okay, anyway, 320,000 rows affected. It has taken 16 seconds. So what I want you to focus on here is the amount of time this has taken. Let me not zoom in. I have turned on statistics time on. So I'm going to show you the elapsed time. So about 15 seconds have been taken here. Keep that number in mind. And let's go and look into the execution plan there, and you are getting some plan here. Okay, you're doing some seeking and all of that stuff. Okay, fine, all good. Now what happens is, let's say 16 seconds is acceptable to you. I was expecting a lot lesser, but anyway, you add a customer ID column to this transactions table. Remember, the transaction table is being used here internally in the inner expression. So you add a customer ID column. Now this customer ID column may have been added for some other reporting requirement or something. So, a DBA just goes and modifies this table and adds a customer ID column. Let's go and do that. And then let's go drop this temporary table. And then this workload comes again, right? So this workload will come again. And now you know what's going to happen. You remember the change here we made is customer ID column, and the actual execution plan is turned on, and let this query run. Are you guessing what's going on? Right? What do you think is going on now? Let's see how much time this one takes. Remember, in the previous execution, this took about 16 seconds, and now this continues to run. Okay, we have crossed over 20. We're touching 20 seconds, and now we have crossed over. This is just going on now. Now, by the time this completes, what's happening? What's happening is, an index was already there, and when you fetched the data from this DBO transactions table, that index was actually being used. Now what has happened is you added this extra column called customer ID, and that customer ID is not part of that index. which means what SQL Server needs to do now is to just fetch this additional column from transactions table. It has to do a lookup from the base, from that index to the base table to just get this additional column. That small schematic change actually made this query perform so bad. And this is due to that very expensive bookmark lookup. Now, don't get me wrong, bookmark lookups are actually good because for everything you just don't want a covering index, right? And for everything you don't want to go to the base table either. So, but in some scenarios, bookmark lookups can go very, very bad. Now, how much time has this taken? Earlier we took 16 seconds, and this time, friends, look at this. This has taken about 55 seconds. Now what's going on? Let's go and look into the execution plan. And now when you go and look into the execution plan, you can see what I just talked about is you get the key value from the index. So seeking is happening, and then it does a bookmark lookup on the base table. That is where the problem is. Now, I want to investigate this further. Look at the cost factor there. So you can see that out of 100% relative cost of the entire execution plan, the cost is 80%. So when I'm troubleshooting query performance, I'm looking at wait stats, wait type, and all of those different things, perfmon counters. You know, monitoring is constant part of a DBA to monitor the query performance and SQL Server performance. Performance tuning begins from monitoring. So if you don't monitor, how would you get to know where the numbers are going bad? But when you're doing all of that, at some point, you will land up in this execution plan. And in this execution plan, when queries are running slow, one of the things, apart from many other things that you may want to see, one of the things will be to look at the cost of each iterator. And I want to find out all those expensive iterators. And I see that cost 80% for key lookup is quite expensive. My query is almost taking 1 minute, which was earlier taking 15 seconds. What's wrong? I'll take this cursor over key lookup and zoom in a bit just to find out how many times is this iterator executing. And I can see the total number of executions there. Do you see that? So that's 7,057 and then 99.5. Wow. 3.9 million times. Number of executions is 3.9 million times, which means there are the criteria that we have put in, 3.9 million records are being fetched, and this inner expression lookups 3.9 million times, and that is the reason why this is so expensive. This is exactly what I explained in my previous example, where if you tell SQL Server Optimizer to do a lookup, which is so huge, it is definitely going to take time. And what else do I observe? So can I just scroll down a bit here? And I want to see the output list. Okay. If I'm doing a key lookup there, what am I trying to get out of the key lookup? And this serves all the purpose. Remember, we created this customer ID column and we added it to the table. This bookmark lookup is being done exactly to retrieve that customer ID column which was added. If this wasn't there, then this lookup would have not been there and the query would have just run absolutely fine. And it is because of that this query has to do a bookmark lookup. Now, what is the solution? Well, the solution is the existing index that you have, you can include customer ID in that particular index, or go back to that DB and tell him to drop the column again. Well, that is one of the things that you can do. Is the covering index was already there, so you could modify it. But then I will highlight another bigger problem. Another bigger problem here is you have given insert, you have given select star, right? You see x dot star. What is x here? X is the named value for this derived expression, and you say x dot star. Remember, you have surely learned about this, that star is always a bad practice. They never say select star from a table. Star means just get all the column. Now take a step back and for a moment think. If instead of star, you had put all the column names that you wanted from the transactions table, customer ID wouldn't have been there in the first place, right? And then DBAs, whether they add customer ID or supplier ID or partner ID or whichever ID they wanted to add, they could have added, and your query would have not been affected. Why? Because you're not using star. The moment you say star, you're trying to get all the columns, the newly columns that get added get included. So follow the best practice here. And there's so many things to learn from here. One is the best practice itself. The key lookup, the bookmark lookup also is an expensive affair. In some scenarios, you learn that. And there's one more thing that you learn. You know, when I talk to customers and developers, sometimes when they're writing such queries, they would run such queries against tables that will have very less data, you know, few records. And if you just are playing with few records, these queries are going to run much faster. Just because my table here had millions of records, I could see the impact of this query. And that is the reason why sometimes in your dev and test environment, when you're running these queries with tables that are relatively very, very small, all queries or any query just runs fast. And you take that query and put it into production environment with real big size data, your queries run slow. I have seen developers testing queries with empty tables, right? Even that's a way. So this is of course not a good practice. So if I had just said A, B, C, comma, whatever, you know, whatever those column names were there, this would have been unaffected. Okay, so that is the bookmark lookup thing. All right, let me drop this table and let me clean this up, okay? And drop the column as well. So two things to quickly summarize. How are we doing with time? I'm looking at the time. Okay, I have 20 minutes to go. And I promised that some of the questions from Satya's session will be answered. Well, Satya was smart enough. He answered all the questions by typing them in the Q&A window. Thanks, Satya. You gave me 15 minutes extra. Okay, so we have done query bookmark lookup thing. So two things, searchability, sargability, and bookmark lookup. Now remember friends, in this demos, I'm just not taking an example and I'm quickly showing it to you. I'm taking a step back, discussing some internals and some foundations so that you get things in totality. That is what my objective here is. Now let's go to the next one, which is T-SQL rewrite. All right. Now, community keeps asking Microsoft to add new T-SQL enhancements all the time, right? And Microsoft believes that you're going to use them. But in reality, I have seen developers not really encaching or leveraging all the new enhancements that are being made. So I am going to show you one example here. And this is probably the toughest part of query tuning in some sense is you get into a project and there are certain bunch of queries that you have to tune. You have not written them. Someone else has written them and your manager is asking you to fix them. That is really tough. And queries are not as small as these, right? In real world, queries are quite huge and quite big. But here, my message to you is take out some time, explore certain new T-SQL enhancements, and they're really good. Here is a very short, quick example of that. Let's take a very dummy example first, right? There is a table here called DBO sales, and I want to do certain computations, certain aggregation. So for the sake of demonstration, I am doing sum, count, average, etc. And I follow a typical developer technique here is for every computation, every aggregation that I want to do, I am writing a select statement. So this becomes a subquery. And when I execute this and I will turn on actual execution plan, you can see that, let me go and look into the, let me close the properties window. This is what I see. Now, the problem with this execution plan, right on the face of it, you can understand your focus will shift on the right-hand side. And you can see for every subquery, I'm going and touching the table again and again. And you can see that we do this about 5 times and once for the outer query. So this is where the problem is. Now, the question is, how can we actually fix this? Now, there is this technique, the over clause in SQL Server. I'm sure you have heard of it or you might have used it. We typically use over clause more with ranking functions. If you haven't heard about ranking functions, today, go ahead and learn more about ranking functions. They are very powerful. The rank function, the dense rank, the entile, and row number. Now, typically what I have seen that over clause is a mandatory requirement to be used there because over clause defines the window of the window. It's a windowing function in a way, right? So it defines the data set that with which you should be working. And this over clause is actually a short technique with the optimizer where when I say some quantity, now this is not a subquery, right? So look at the difference between the two statements. I'm saying I want these columns, and then I say I also want to do a summation on quantity over and no column here over as some quantity. And then I do that for all the aggregations. So in a single pass, it selects all the data and computes these multiple aggregations on the fly. It will not have to go and touch the table again and again and again and again, which we did here 5 times. So in a single pass. So this is really like a shorting technique there with the optimizer. So when I execute this and we see the execution plan, right? Simpler plan. And you see we are touching the table only twice, the sales table. But is there a performance difference? There may be. Let's go and select both of these and execute. And let's see what the optimizer sees. Shortcut technique of the optimizer. So the first query takes 84% of the cost, and the second one here takes 16% of the cost. So there's quite a bit of difference. This was a very simple rewrite example that I showed, and now you can just take a real world example and apply it here. Let's say here is one of those queries that you wanted to write. So we are trying to calculate the sales quantity and the average quantity over the sales. So just trying to put into a real world application use, I'm computing sum and I'm computing average. And if I execute this, the problem is I go to the execution plan and I can see the same table is being scanned multiple times. I come back to the query window here and I can rewrite this with over clause, and you can see the execution of this, right? Same thing, just trying to put it in a real world application scenario. And now you execute this and the over clause is being used, and you can compare both of them and you can see that there is a performance improvement. So let's close this one. This completes the third demo. I'm supposed to show you 5 of them, right? Okay, let's take the next one, query tuning conversion. All right, this is implicit conversion now. So 4th demo here. The 4th demo talks about implicit conversion. This is also a very, very common problem in SQL Server deployments, the way developers are writing their queries, and very simple, very easy to fix, very easy to identify. Let's use AdventureWorks 2012 for this. Look at this. In this particular query, you're saying where account number is equal to n within apostrophe, you have put some literal. So this is basically comparing account number with this constant. The only problem here is account number. If I take the cursor over account number, and you can faintly see that this is varchar, right? And this is varchar data type, and this constant, when you prefix n here, it becomes Unicode string, right? So this is n varchar. Now you're telling SQL Server to convert from varchar to n varchar, and this becomes an implicit conversion. When you do something like that, and if these two values, when they are being converted to the right data type, you're leaving it to SQL Server to decide. So when you leave it to SQL Server to decide, of course, SQL Server is going to take some time. I am going to turn on set statistics. What's that? I should have this already. Set statistics. This big mic is in front of the laptop. Okay, set statistics, time on. There you go. And let's go and execute this. I'm not really turning on IO because that's not important here right now. So time on, and you leave it to SQL Server to decide this, and let's go and execute this. You get the output, of course, because implicit conversion has happened. Let's also turn on actual execution plan, go back to the messages window, and you can see here that CPU has spent some time, right? 234 milliseconds there. That's the time this query spent on CPU. That's the thread time, okay? Now, let's go and run this once more. I want to show you something in execution plan here. So you saw it took 334 milliseconds, and when you go to the execution plan, when you look at the execution plan, this is another thing about the query plans here. Watch out for warnings. So on the select operator, I can see that yellow exclamation mark. I take the cursor over that, and when I scroll down a bit here in the tooltip, I can see that SQL Server is trying to give me some hint. It's telling me, you know what, the query that you have written is good. It gives the data, but there is some warning here. You're asking me to do some conversion, and this might affect cardinality estimate in query plan choice, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of this jargons there, which means the moment you see convert implicit, that is where you have to think, can you do something about that? Is conversion really required? So now let's go and see how you can fix it. Well, the fix is very simple. I could have even just done it here. So I can just remove this, right? That's all is required, because then it becomes a varchar, you're converting from a Unicode string to a non-Unicode string, because this Unicode thing is really not required. No, Unicode is the fashion today, right? So everything is Unicode data. And when you do this and you go into the messages tab, let's scroll down, CPU time is 0. That's where it is. And that's what you wanted. So now you're not telling SQL Server to convert. There's no implicit conversion happening. So it is all good. Now, implicit conversion is, again, as I said, a very common problem. One of the questions someone asked me in one of my previous demonstrations, previous sessions, that, hey, Amit, this 50 milliseconds, 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, does it really matter? I mean, you're talking about 1/5 of a second. Do you really need to think in those terms? I'm not going to give you the answer. You decide yourself. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to run this query 100 times, okay? Okay, just for the sake of simplicity and just to save some time, let's run it 50 times, okay? Same query with that implicit conversion, I'm running 50 times. And again, to save time, I'm going to get results into the text window, not in the grid window, okay? Because rendering in grid takes a little bit more time by Management Studio. Let's go and execute this 50 times. This is running. Let's calculate how much time this takes. Okay, it's running. You're running the same query 50 times. So assume that users are coming and firing this query across the day a couple of times with different parameter values, and all of them are Unicode string. It is prefixed with N, and all of that is happening while you and I are talking, while this event is going on. People are coming and hitting the query, okay? And the bad thing that I have done is, which I should stop here, because I turned on actual execution plan. Execution plan should be turned off because I'm running this 50 times. So 50 times execution plan is getting created. So let's do this again. Okay, and now this will run a little more faster. Okay, now there's no execution plan. You're running the same query 50 times. So back to the same scenario. Users are coming, hitting SQL Server with the same query multiple times, different parameter values. It's still running. It's just taking quite a bit of time, more than I expect now. Lot of data, a lot of big data, a lot of databases, a lot of instances running in this tiny SQL, tiny laptop, not tiny SQL Server. So this is taking more than 30 seconds now. Okay, 30 seconds. Now you have to decide, right, whether all this millisecond makes sense or not. So let me zoom in and show you how much time this total execution has taken. So look at the status bar there, and you can see this execution took 30 seconds. Keep this in mind. Now, what do you want to do? We want to fix this, right? So I'll remove this and no more implicit conversions. Let's go and run this again 50 times and see how much time this takes. Do you see it's running a little faster now? Okay, but we need to look at the overall time. Earlier it took 30 seconds and now it is done. It has taken 8 seconds. There you go. So friends, decide for yourself, a few milliseconds does matter or not. So it's just not about a singleton execution here. Every millisecond, according to me, really matters here, because such queries are coming in thousands of numbers from your users, from different applications. And overall, if you see the combined effect, the combined impact, it's quite huge. So you need to go and fix that. Okay, so let's go and close this one. So we are done with implicit conversion. How am I doing with time? Let me just go and look at the time there. Okay, what's the time now? Okay, I have about 10 more minutes. Okay, so next one is parameter sniffing, the fifth example, right? 5 query tuning tricks, and I'm just assuming that parameter sniffing will be quite known to you. So checking Satya, is it all good time and everything? How are we doing?
Yes, Amit, we have 10 more minutes.
Fair enough. Fifth demo, parameter sniffing, and let's look at that. Idea is very simple. When optimizer has to prepare an execution plan, it sniffs the parameter value that you have supplied and it creates an execution plan based on that parameter value, which is a good thing. Now, when these parameter values come in, what can really happen? Sometimes based on the parameter values, the number of records could be a lot more. Sometimes it could be a lot less, right? Those are the things. And we talked about selectivity even in previous examples, right? When sometimes the number of records are quite huge, which means the query was low selective. And if the number of records are small, the queries are highly selective. That can happen. Parameter sniffing is a problem with typically stored procedures are the victims here. So if parameter sniffing is good on one side, it can be problematic on another side. What could be the problem? Now think about it. SQL Server has this concept of storing the plan in the plan cache for reuse, because creating a plan, optimizing it, compiling it, etc., is also CPU intensive activity. So SQL Server would want that in an OLTP environment, these queries are coming in again and again and again, and I don't want to create plans every time. A plan has been created. I'm going to put it in the plan cache and I'm going to reuse it if the same query comes again, which is going to save a lot of time. All that is great. But the problem is, let's say this stored procedure comes in with a parameter value that only gives one record and the plan gets saved in the plan cache. All good. And now the same workload comes, or that stored procedure is fired with a different parameter value that gives 1 million records as the result set. And if the same plan is being used, which was optimized earlier for just one record, now will run for 1 million records. This is where things go bad. And this is that typical problem of parameter sniffing. So let me quickly show you this example, and I will also show you how you can quickly fix it. Parameter sniffing is an age-old problem, and there have been some solutions here and there. Some solutions are good, some solutions are not so good. And the ones that are good, there is, again, you may have to make some sacrifice, because there's no knob or switch or any fix which is best for all the worlds. So let's go and try to see this. I'm using AdventureWorks 2012. I create a very simple stored procedure here called get customer ship dates. It takes two parameters, the date start and date end. And then we are writing this select statement, which will give me data between ship date start and ship date end. Let's go and execute this query. Create the stored procedure. I'm also creating a non-clustered index to support the query, which is very similar to what we were doing earlier, right? Seeking, because ship date is there in my predicate here. You can see this. So I'm thinking, yes, I should create a non-clustered index on ship date. So let's go and do that. And now let's watch the fun. So we will turn on actual execution plan. And here is the first statement. Let me free the proc cache just for the purpose of demo. These are things you should not do in production environment. My first query is fetching data for last 3 years. Look at the query there. Look at the parameter values. This is parameter sniffing, right? So the parameter sniffing says here, start date is 2005 and end date is 2008. Give me 3 years of data. And the second one just gives me 10 days of data, right? From 10 July to 20 July. So you can understand the first one will get us a lot of records and the second one will get us less records, and the plans will change. And this is what you want. So what we are going to do is run this first one and execute and look into the execution plan. And you can see that you get a scan. So you can see clustered index scan, which is all good. And now if I run this one, what will happen? This is, if you run this, it's going to reuse the plan, right? So if I go and look into the execution plan, and yes, you can see that this has used a scan plan. Now let me free the proc cache. All this is good. Now when I run this one, this is where now the problem is. Now when I run this one, I only get 41 records, of course, because I'm getting only 10 days of data. When I look into the execution plan, what has happened? Suddenly the plan changed. I'm getting a key lookup plan. So I'm getting a seek and then I'm getting a key lookup. Why? Because I freed the proc cache. The first execution, of course, for a stored procedure, the first execution prepares the execution plan and it injects it into the plan cache, and that is being reused later. So in the previous scenario, when I ran the first query here, the first execution of the stored procedure, it created a scan plan and injected it into the plan cache, and all subsequent executions used that. Well, that was scanned, so it was still okay. But now for some reason that plan got kicked out, you restarted SQL Server or whatever, you changed the set operation, then the plan cache was emptied for that database. Anything could have happened. And the same stored procedure was fired with different set of parameters, which were highly selective in result set, and a seek plan with key lookup got generated and got injected into the plan cache, which was good for 41 records. But now the subsequent executions come in and they want a lot of data across years. And when you execute this, look at the status bar, you got 17,000 records here. So the previous execution got you 41 records, now 17,000 records. And what happens with the execution plan? It is seeking again. And where is the problem? The problem is if you take the key lookup here, and you can see that the number of executions for this key lookup was 17,000. Imagine if this was 17 million. This could have taken more than a minute, something very similar to that I showed you right in the first example, the bookmark lookup. You see how I've connected my fifth example right with the first example. So this is parameter sniffing problem. And this is always happening in your environment also. It's kind of difficult to figure this out. There are techniques. I have a video on SQL Maestro's YouTube channel. So this reminds me, go to SQL Maestro's YouTube channel. I've showed a technique there, how you can identify these queries and workloads that are being plagued, that are being affected by parameter sniffing problem. So what happens, what is the effect of this? The effect is sometimes stored procedures are running faster in good pace, sometimes they are slow, and sometimes they are back fast again, and you haven't done anything and you take the pat on your back, yeah, I fixed it, but then they happen bad again. What is the fix of that? Well, there are a lot of different ways to fix this, and I'm just going to show you one technique, a universal technique that works. But as I said, no solution is without any sacrifice here. So I can, let me just scroll down and show you the best way to fix this is, let's drop the stored procedure and recreate the, did I drop it? Okay, let's drop it and recreate the stored procedure with the hint option recompile. There are ways how you can use option unknown, and you can use local variables, and in latest versions of SQL Server you can use query store. Different techniques all have their advantages and disadvantages. For the sake of this demo and for the time constraint, let's just focus on one thing that might really work good. Option recompile, which means you're telling SQL Server that for this stored procedure and for this statement specifically, just recompile the execution plan again and again every time this workload comes in, every time the stored procedure is called. Remember, I'm not recompiling the entire stored procedure. I'm only recompiling this particular statement inside the stored procedure. And this is what we call as statement level recompiling, because a stored procedure can have multiple statements. Now, when I go ahead and create the stored procedure again with option recompile, hints are always the last resort, but sometimes they're the only solution. So let's go and execute. Where are the queries? Okay, let's go back and scroll on here. Here are the queries. So when I execute the first query here, first time, you should get a scan plan, right? Because this is 3 years of data. Yes, you get a scan. And when you execute the second one, what should you get? You should get a seek. Is it? Yes, you get a seek, and this is fixed. 5 examples, top 5 query tuning tricks. Wow, look at the time. This is 1 p.m. Perfect timing. So I go into Hall of Fame there with speakers who have completed their sessions exactly in time. And I have some questions. So before I answer all the questions, in the chat window, please give some feedback. The links are up there, just like you have given for all other sessions. Follow me on Twitter, which is _Bansal. I will keep recording more demos and more examples, and I will put them on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/SQL Maestros. If you are someone who is interested in internals and performance tuning, you should go there. And a small promotion for our video courses. So while all this Corona thing was going on, I thought, let me record some of my performance tuning stuff as a fast track video course. So if you are someone who has 6 months, 1 year, 2 years of experience with SQL Server, and you just want a kind of a 2-day training while sitting at your home, like as live as this, just go and sign up for the video course. We try to give as much discounts to the community possible. But if you want some more discounts, just drop a mail to contact@sqlmaestros.com and sign up for those video courses. There's one on query tuning, there's one on performance tuning fast track, and then T-SQL querying and T-SQL programming, 3 of them. You don't have to take up the entire video course. If you just want some modules of them, then even that is available. But if you don't want to purchase anything or something, absolutely fine. YouTube channel is always free. We are committed to it, and we keep recording stuff, and we keep putting stuff out there for community. So feel free to learn. Just like this event is all free.